Welcome to this edition of Real Talk with TAS and OnJerya here on Instagram Live. Tonight, we are so excited to speak with you about where is Wendy Williams. And, you know, this documentary has been all the buzz. And I must say that OnJerya and I have been chatting about it also. And so we could not wait until we could talk with you guys about it here on Instagram. And Jaya, are you here with me? I'm bringing her in. I'm not sure she's joined me yet. She's trying to populate. Are you there? Let me see if I got her. Okay. Let's see if we got her this time. She says she is. Well, it's so good to have you with me, OnJerya. Um, Before we begin, did you want to say anything to our audience? Do I have you live, or are you just in the process of coming on? No, that you don't want to say anything before we get started? Is that what you're saying to me, that you don't want to say anything before I kick us off? Oh, she didn't receive the notifications, what she's saying to me. Okay, let's do it again. Let's cancel that one. Now let's try it again. Well,
Okay.
it's so nice to see you in your Anson t-shirt. I just don't know what it is about you today.
But thank you. I decided to wear something a little more vibrant.
Well, you
Get
look
in the
so
top.
beautiful. You look so beautiful. You really do. And I
Thank you.
believe we have the same.
Hmm.
Well, as I was saying to our audience, and thank you. I think I saw that Mona had joined us. So thank you so much, Mona, for joining us tonight. Like most of America, we have been discussing the documentary, Where is Wendy Williams? And it had been a very revealing documentary. And so before we get started, I don't know if you've had an opportunity, Nona, to watch it, but for those who are coming on, if you've had an opportunity to watch, just put it in the chat if you've had an opportunity to watch the documentary. But the documentary, for those who've not watched it or who may have heard a little bit about it, but not quite sure what it's about, basically it is a 4-hour documentary that Wendy Williams is executive producer, if I'm not mistaken, and it explores her life and particularly explores what her life was like over the last, let's say, about 2 to 3 years, and it sort of chronicles that, and it touches on several things. And as a result of some of the things that have been occurring in Wendy's life, she does have a conservatorship. There have been some substance issues, some health issues that she had made her audience aware of, some cognitive issues. And so the documentary touches on some of those issues, the majority of those issues, some in more depth than others. And so tonight, what we want to do is sort of unpack the documentary. So I guess the way that I want to kick this off is, OnJerya, is now that you've seen the documentary in its whole, in its entirety, I should say, what's your initial thoughts about the documentary? What's your gut? How does your gut feel after having watched it?
It's heavy. It's very educational. I feel like I learned a lot about guardianship slash the conservatorship that I didn't know. How easy it is for the states, I guess, to deem even your power of attorney not fit, I guess, as they would say, being able to, be over your affairs and how they can just kind of intervene and take over. And I hope that this documentary, I know a lot of people probably looked at it for like entertainment purposes, but for me, like I said, it was very educational. It allowed me to fully understand like what was going on and how much she was alone. Because she kept saying that a lot, like, I'm bored, I'm alone, I don't have any friends. And as a result of that, how that impacted her.
I'm alone. I know I have said or I've heard you can be alone and be in a room, a crowded room. And oftentimes we fail to realize what loneliness can be, because there is a difference between being lonely and being alone. And I wondered, was with Wendy saying that she was lonely because she didn't have her family with her in New York because her family was in Miami. And she said she didn't have friends. And she was alone. She was alone. She didn't have her show. And her show, it appeared, had become her identity. So without her show, she didn't have, she'd lost a part of herself. And I think that speaks to her personal struggles, but also the mental, the identity, our identity, and how that can sometimes be intertwined with our mental and our mental well-being, our mental wellness, because I think that that was evident as one of the things that we kept seeing. It was so upfront with everything that she was saying. And I think the point that you made about the power of attorney and how we think it's binding and how quickly we saw that even though her son had her power of attorney, it was overturned by the courts. And that gave me some pause also, because I'm thinking it's binding, but we saw in her instance, it was no longer binding. So I thought that was a very good teachable moment for those of us to be aware of, that the power of attorney may wind up not being binding if the courts deem that they feel the individual is not acting in the best interest of the person. And I believe they stated in the documentary, if they felt that when the person gave the power of attorney, they did not have the cognitive ability to make that decision. So the question then becomes, at what point did the individual cognitive ability become questionable? And so, as it relates to us everyday people, we must be mindful of that as we're making arrangements for our family members. Sometimes we wait until the last minute to make those decisions, but we have to be proactive and make them earlier so that the courts can't judge and make the decision that the documents may not be legally binding. So I thought that was an excellent thing to take away from the documentary. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this one. So, I have Graves' disease, and um, Wendy has not been, she has not shied away from the fact that she had Graves' disease. She talked about that while she still was on the air. When you see her in the documentary, she is exhibiting one of the classic symptoms that some individuals do exhibit who have Graves' disease, which is the bulging of the eyes. And she even speaks to that. Now, it can be a bit disconcerting. I guess it's the way I would put it. Excuse me. It can be a bit disconcerting when you see someone whose eyes are bulging when you are not accustomed to that. When you saw the documentary, because you were a couple episodes ahead of me, and you first saw the documentary, were you taken aback by how she looked physically?
Not really, because I didn't watch the show like every day, but I watched it here and there. So I love the show. I do kind of miss the show. Um, and no, because if you actually watch the show, you can kind of see like her physical appearance, like transitioning. And she also had no problem with letting you know. So it's kind of like, let me poke fun at myself. Let me go head on and just talk about it so you don't have to speculate what's going on. And I feel like, even with the documentary, I know it's been very controversial as to like, should this been released? Should it have not been released? It looks bad. It's not a good look. You could tell that she wasn't all there. If she was, she wouldn't have wanted this to air. She wouldn't want anyone to see her without her wigs on, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Again, I don't know her personally, but just seeing how open and transparent she has always been, like throughout her career, even when she was on the radio, you know, no, I wasn't surprised. Like, I give her, like I said, mad props of just being open about it because, again, as you stated, like a lot of people are dealing with this, and sometimes it's healing, right? Like, it's very therapeutic to talk about it because then when you are out and about and people see you, they can say, hey, I saw your story. I didn't know. Right. But you educated me because I learned something new. Or, hey, like, what you stated, it inspired me because I'm dealing with this, and no, I don't have, those symptoms, those features, or what have you. It lets me know that I'm not alone. Because I think sometimes a lot of people, when they're dealing with different illnesses, feel like they're on an island by themselves. And so when you see someone who has a platform and takes advantage of that platform and using it in a positive way, it's exciting. It gives you that, like, okay, like, it's not so bad after all.
Well, it's amazing, Andrea. Prior to me starting the documentary, I was speaking to someone who had said to me that they have lymphedema. And and then I picked, I pressed the remote and it's like, okay, then, Wendy is saying that. And so I was like, let me Google this. And I thought about individuals who I have seen years ago. And some of these people you may remember who had one limb that was maybe larger than the other. Never knew why it was like that. Never asked any question, never stared. And the person who's currently dealing with it is dealing with it as a result of cancer. And so I did a little Googling, about how sometimes it occurs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I thought again how ironic that I had spoken to someone who was dealing with it, and then once I saw the documentary and saw Wendy's feet, and then she mentioned it, I immediately went back to some individuals that I had seen growing up as a child, but I never knew what their condition was. And it was like a full circle moment. There was those individuals, the person who I currently know who's dealing with some issues, and then seeing Wendy's feet, and her saying that I think she said she had about 6% feeling in her feet. And I think about when she was on Dancing with the Stars, because yeah, she was on Dancing with the Stars, uh, and uh, and I don't have much rhythm. We know that, but she did a good job considering all that she probably was even dealing with at that time. From a physical standpoint. So when I think about her, I think about her resilience. I think about her determination. And I think about that 6-year-old girl who said that she wanted to be famous, from I think it's Asbury Park, New Jersey. And she wanted to be on the radio. She was on the radio. She was a radio personality. She was a trailblazer and became an icon and TV talk show icon. She paved the way. The things that she did is what other people are doing now. She made her dream a reality. And even as she had her health challenges, she was still paving the way, talking about those things. And so for me, I see resilience there. I see that that's my takeaway. And I want to celebrate that, even though there's controversy about why she showed her feet and this and that. And, some people say, well, did she have the cognitive ability to even have been the executive producer at that time? That's not for me to say. But I think that people can be helped because she did share what some of her health issues are. Because sometimes people think that they're the only person that's dealing with something. And when you realize somebody else is dealing with something that's similar or the exact same thing, it is an encouragement when you see that they are still going forward. Because, you look at her feet, she's got 6% feeling. So when people say, well, I don't understand why she needs help walking, she doesn't have the sensation when she's trying to walk. She doesn't feel it. So therefore, she doesn't feel her steps. You may think, well, why does she have on the boots? Well, they become, even though they're not hard boots, because that would not be good necessarily, because if something is cutting into her feet, she wouldn't necessarily feel it. You see what I'm saying? Because she doesn't have sensation. So Uggs or something that's soft, that's protecting her feet, and it's protecting most likely her ankles. So again, it's a fashion statement, but it's also a protection for her because she doesn't have that sensation. And so sometimes we have to think about things from multiple perspectives to begin to understand why people sometimes do things a little differently than what we think, they should do. But I think that when we look at the health challenges that she's facing, I think that even, I'll fast forward to the things that have come out over the weekend about the possible dementia, the same diagnosis as Bruce Willis. I know that our father mentioned to me about someone in our hometown who was diagnosed with a very rapid developing dementia, who has since passed. And when our father mentioned that to me, I looked it up on the internet while he was talking to me, and it was, I can't remember the name of it now, but it is a very rapid dementia that comes on very quickly. And the individual's prognosis is not very good. But with that particular type of dementia, physically, they're fine, but their cognitive abilities deteriorate very quickly, and their life expectancy is very short. And probably within, I'm going to say 3 weeks of our father mentioning this person to me, the person had passed. And this has been within the last 5 weeks, I would say. So again, there's much work to be done still as we look at dementia and the different types of dementia or cognitive, because we don't know what is going on with Wendy, but cognitive um, um, deficiencies, things that impact us from a cognitive perspective, because things are just so different now. But regardless of what her health issues are, I know you and I hope that she gets the best medical care possible, and that those of us who love her show, wish her well. Um, we just hope that she continues to get the best care for her. Now, let's just go to, because I've touched on her career and I've touched a little bit about her legacy. The fact that what she's done, and the documentary talks about her and shows her going out to Hollywood and seeing her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you and I have been on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it's like, when you're able to be there and see the stars and everything. And so that's another part of her career and her legacy. But I want to talk a little bit about the family dynamics. Because we've talked a little bit about the conservatorship and this legal battle over the guardianship. Did you find this aspect of the documentary compelling? Why, if you did, or why not?
Honestly, I'll talk about her family, but I really want to talk about her team. I don't care for her team. Um, I don't like Sean, and I'm pretty certain I'm not alone. We all feel that way. I've seen other media outlets talk about good old Sean. Will, I still, I'm on the fence about with Brother Will, the manager, because I feel like Will and Sean were both feeding into her foolishness. Let's just be real. Let's just call it what it is. Um, because my thing is, I wasn't understanding how she was getting access to the alcohol. Because if you're making it very clear, okay, that she is not to have any alcoholic beverage, whether it's a mimosa, whether it's a shot, whether it's whatever, it was still getting in her care, right? Like some shape, form, or fashion. And I don't understand, as the old folks would say, we need to go dry out. Like, why it took so long for that to happen. Because, again, the writing was all over the wall. Like, even with the very first episode, the first few minutes into it, you could clearly see that she wasn't 100% there. And so I feel like her team failed her. And again, I don't know the legal dynamic, so I'm not gonna speak on that. That's my disclaimer. I'm not gonna speak on it. But what I will say is that it did not take a rocket scientist to see that she was slurring her words. Yes, there may have been some cognitive things there, but why did we wait so long to actually get help, right? And then Sean flying her out to LA. Girl, what were you thinking? Like, you can clearly see that that's not where she needed to be. Okay? After y'all done drove around the little area in New York City about 3, 4, 5, 10 times to try to get the blue vape pen that she wanted, again, you thought that it was a good idea to fly her to California right? Because that's where she wanted to go. And then talk about, oh yeah, I got you a meeting with, like NBC or whoever it was. I have like, so it's like, why are we feeding into the Delulu? Why are we setting false expectation? Right? It's like, I agree with the family. Now, this is how the family gonna come in. I agree with not Alexis. I got an Alexis. I agree with Alex. Okay, I agree with Alex and Kevin, and I believe the nephew was Travis. I agree with even Wanda. I agree with all of them. It's like, who have you surrounded yourself by, with? And why are these people okay with allowing you to do what you do, right? And then they clearly see that you need 24-hour care. And for what I'm understanding is that kind of goes along with the guardianship, is, again, I don't know, because I don't know what's written out. Okay. But from what the family is understanding is that basically somebody's supposed to be with her 24-hour care. Okay, like she's not really supposed to be alone per se, given the circumstances. So my heart goes out to the family because it's like they can see it, but they're like there's nothing that they can do, right? Like they can go visit, they can talk to her. Some days are better than others. I mean, Alexis, I'm gonna call her Alexis, but Alex, I love Alex, okay? Alex walked up in there and was like, I don't know this woman. I don't know. I need this woman to leave. I'm here talking to my aunt. And I also felt like that was very disrespectful too. Like, we having a private conversation. And I need you to step on out the room while I talk to my aunt. Okay? So it was like even her team, I feel like, didn't even respect her family and the boundaries. Like even with her son, I mean, again, Will did the best he could, but I feel like he could have did better than what he was doing. Like if you are tight as you are alleging that you are with the guardianship, like why were you not advocating more than what you were? When you saw what you saw, like it shouldn't have taken months and years to be like, okay, there's a problem. When you're coming there to see her and you see that, she's like, give me a few minutes. Okay, and the few minutes pass and you go and check on her, and she's like in the bathroom crying, hiding out. But then you see all these bottles, like empty bottles of like vodka, or that she's had mimosas or whatever the circumstances is. Like, I guess it's like, what more did you need to see for you to be like, okay, we have a bigger issue than just, she wants to have a drink? Because I can remember when they interviewed Sean and was like, do you think she has a problem? And Sean basically was like, Wendy knows her limitation. No, baby, no alcoholic know their limitation. That's why they're alcoholic. That's why they're alcoholic. No addict, whether it's drug, alcohol, sex, whatever, know their limitation. That's why they're addict. They want more. They crave more. And as long as they have that crave for that fix, that need, they're going to do whatever it takes in order to, to satisfy that urge. And then even once that urge is satisfied, it's still not enough. And I just felt like her team basically was just feeding into it and allowing her to do whatever she wanted to do. Why her family wasn't going up there to see her more frequently, again, I don't know if that's because of the parameters with, the court system. I don't know, but I just feel bad for them. I don't know where it stands right now. I know that they were saying at the end of the documentary that they hope that, when they talked to her, that she was slowly starting to sound like herself. And I think every year it comes up for review. So they're hoping that maybe when it comes up for review this year, that she is strong enough to actually advocate for herself and is able to, speak her mind about how she feels, even if, they still keep her under this, conservatorship or what have you. providing some flexibility where she can at least spend some time with her family. So if she wants to be like the snowbirds and go spend, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in Florida during the wintertime, like that's okay, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. So I do hope that that happens. I hope that her family is just actually able to get the right team. Unfortunately, we don't have Johnny Cochran and all them people, but whoever it is you got to have. I'm sure there's some wonderful lawyers that they can find to kind of like help fight this. Because I guess my concern is she's in this treatment. Well, based on the documentary, the way it ended, she was in the treatment facility, right? They basically cleared out her apartment. We don't know if she knows that they have cleared out her apartment. I mean, of course she knew that they were going to, she was going to be moving because the apartment that she was in was, wasn't designed. It's no longer fitting her needs. Let's put it that way. She needed something that's one level. And I don't know if they even share that with her because again, is that going to like trigger her to know like when I go home that I'm not going home to what once upon a time was my home, even though she knows that she knew going in like I'm moving because you could clearly see that they were packing up, but it's just that understanding of like this was my life, like this is where I've been for however many years she was there. Like this is, I guess, like the marital home, as they say. Like I raised my son here, so I guess for me, I'm like, is that going to trigger her? If so, like how is her family going to respond to that? Because I think they said that they were unaware that that was even taking place. So I just hope her family just fights and continue to fight. It seems like, she has a wonderful support system. Like even her father, like I know it just broke his heart, you know. And he just, she was like, I have a show, daddy. And he was like, I know, baby, I can't. Like just, cause you know how some people are, but they'll be like, you don't. And it's like, look, we know that this is not necessarily this person, right? Like they come and go, right? They're in and out. And the fact that he, everybody basically was just like, yeah, you're right. Like you are going to be back on TV. And she really, I mean, if you think about it, she really is back on TV. Like it's a documentary. No, it's not a talk show per se, but I mean, she's still on TV, right? And this is something that will continue to air forever and ever and ever.
Well, if you're just now joining, we'll talk with TAS and OnJerya tonight. We are unpacking Where is Wendy Williams documentary. If you're not following us, please follow us, Dr. Teresa Smith and Miss Scorpio 85. Thank you, Ms. Manswell, for joining us. Yes, and thank you also, Lake Street 39, for joining us. And again, thank you, Nona, for being with us tonight. Yes, the show was her life, as Manswell was saying. Yeah, the show was her life. Also, he indicated that you have to have a living estate with 2 or more people, and some folks have living trust in addition. And he's agreeable with you and Jay that he blames her team for not having everything together before it got bad. And that goes back to, again, sometimes even if things are not going bad, things can be great. We have to be proactive. We have to start planning when everything is good. You have to plan now so that in the event things are not good, everything is in place. You just roll with it. And, it appears that things were not in place. But let me say this, things could have been in place prior to her divorce. And it could have been that once her divorce occurred, things never got modified. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure that things were potentially could have been in place, but after the divorce, maybe they didn't get modified because the divorce, and we can understand that, we can empathize. The divorce was such a traumatic thing for her. And maybe that's where it was not rectified as far as some of her documents and things of that nature. Also, Manswell says that um, there's always others to lean on. And, again, it's not good TV though. Yeah, because, it's kind of tough, um, and it would have been a three-way call as it relates to trying to figure out what are we going to do. And yes, I'm sure that the outlets are having a conversation about Sean. It was interesting. I will be honest. The first time I saw Sean, she was giving Sean the business.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea Sean was her publicist. Then Sean is her publicist. Then Sean has taken her to LA and has not told anybody. Now, that was a bit disconcerting, well, disheartening to me, I'll put it that way, because we know that she can't leave New York without permission. And you've taken it upon yourself to take her. It could
Right.
have been perceived as kidnapping. You've
Mm-hmm.
taken her out of the state without permission. That was a little concerning for me. And it did not appear that she thought that was a big deal at all. Um, and as Mansell said, this thing blew up in a crazy way. And then she took her to lunch, and Wendy ordered a drink, and she looked at her. She was concerned that she ordered a drink. She was concerned. But as she said some other times when she spoke, but she's not spinning anything. But it was written all over her face that she was concerned that she was ordering a drink. Wendy was saying that this is how she wanted to dress for her show. And she was going to talk to NBC execs about that and blah, 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 blah. And, um, and she had a meeting, and the documentary said that NBC, they had no comment about that meeting. Well, as I always say, there's a vote taking place and you abstain, you voted. When there's no comment, there's a comment. There's no comment. There's a comment. So the documentary showed that when she was going to see her star, she was not quite lucid at that moment. And when she asked her, did she want to go to the Oscars, I believe. I think she said it that way. She didn't, I don't know if she said Academy Awards. I think she said the Oscars. She wasn't quite able to make the connection. And then she's, maybe she thought she could dress like the way she was dressed. And she's like, no, after 5, you got to be dressed up, got to wear a dress. Those those comments showed that there was something a little amiss. I don't know what, because I'm not a medical professional, but a little amiss. Well, that's not the first time that things have been a little amiss. I personally, and I've done private duty, and she was not the person doing private duty. I personally would not have wanted to take that responsibility, taking someone across country by myself, because the camera people, they don't count, across country and take on that responsibility. I would not have, but she didn't see it that way. So I can imagine that people are a little disheartened with Sean. Um, but again, and when she came into the room and just sat down and inserted herself into the aunt and niece conversation as if she had been invited, it was interesting. It was interesting. You mentioned Will, I believe it is. I think that It appears he was doing the best that he could, but he was perhaps in over his head. He was a jeweler. It was going to take a special person to work with Wendy, given where she was, to given where she was. And as you pointed out, how did the alcohol continue to get there? I don't know. And her niece said normally, they would be eating stuff out the fridge, but she wasn't even going to go look to see what was in the fridge because it gave you the impression that perhaps there wouldn't have been food there because she could see how things were different there with Wendy. But I think it was interesting when she was talking to her dad, because her show was going to be on the air on Wednesday. And he said, well, today is Wednesday. You know, um, but I thought that was interesting. And but she didn't. But did you notice how she responded, or how she didn't respond?
It threw her. I mean, it threw her because it was like, what are you talking about? You know, like she didn't know what day of the week it was.
Mm-hmm. But my point in saying that, Angelia, was she may not have known what day of the week it was, but I was really looking at it from the perspective of how our parents can say things to us that will shift us in a way that other people cannot. You know what I'm saying? Because he was very matter of fact about, well, today is Wednesday. And it was like, okay. It just kind of like she didn't throw a tantrum. It just shut her down. Now, of course, there was a lot of editing being done. And let me say this, guys, as a person who does a little editing now, it's all in how you edit. We don't know what was not edited in. There could have been things that was a lot tamer that was edited out. And we'll never know. We'll never know. But I thought that was an interesting scene that she said that. And he's like, well, today's Wednesday. And it was like, I don't think she said anything. It was like, then they moved on. And I thought that was just very interesting. And then Manswell was saying here, keeping my Sean thoughts to myself because I don't want to get banned. Laugh out loud. No, we don't want you to get banned. So that you keep your thoughts to yourself because we do not want you to get banned as it relates to Sean. She was she's an interesting young lady. Interesting indeed. Um, I've hit the majority of the themes that I wanted us to address, Anjaya. We talked about her personal struggles, her health. We talked about the family dynamics. Um, was there anything that you wanted to say about her son?
My heart goes out to
Kevin.
him. My
Kevin.
heart goes out to Kevin because honestly, he's been there throughout this. And, you know, I'm assuming he's probably still in school now, probably about to graduate, I'm assuming, or close to it. And he didn't sign up for this. You know, he didn't sign up to have to be the adult in the situation, right? Um, and I think that broke him too because he has such a good close relationship with his mother, and to see her like you could tell like when him and his cousin they came to the restaurant and they meet her for the first time, that they both were just like, oh my god, because he talked about like how skinny she looked and just like he just almost didn't recognize her. And then even when they went out and they had dinner with her brother and her father, and she gave him the shirt, and he made like a comment about the shirt, and she was like, well, if you don't want it, you can just give it back. And he was like, no, like know is he feels helpless sometimes, but I am grateful to see that he has an excellent support system. You know, he has his auntie and his cousins that are like rallying behind him to be like, you know, we got you. Um, because it is challenging, you know, when you see your parents always at their best, and then you start seeing, okay, well, they're not moving as fast as they used to move. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, is it that is it something wrong, or you know, you start having those conversations to yourself. Okay, well, they said this, or they didn't say it this way. You know, is it something there? Are they slipping? Like all of those things start running through your mind. So, you know, I just feel for him. And then with him being in school, like this is just an additional layer of like what is going to happen, right? Because I know the documentary, of course, was about Wendy. I mean, you know, we briefly talked about Kevin, his father. You know, we kind of briefly talked about that. But so we're going to assume that, you know, their relationship is kind of, okay, you know. Um, so it's like if he was to lose his mother, like what would happen to him, right? Because it's like she's all that he has. And it's sad to be in a helpless situation. I can imagine, you know, when the courts took the power of attorney away, that was devastating for him. Because again, in his mind, it's like, you can't tell me what I did, right? Like you can't, like you're looking at the charges, but let's be real. Wendy lives an extravagant life. Okay. So I am pretty certain that they saw those charges. Okay. And you can see like when something is really, really like, okay, this is being called into question, right? Now the Uber Eats and all of that, I mean, again, if Wendy wants it, as we can see, Wendy gets it. And I can about 90% say those were her charges because hello, like even with the breakfast and stuff, like somebody was bringing that food to her. And I'm pretty certain she wasn't going to get it herself, okay? And Will wasn't going to get it because he would always be like, did you eat? Did you eat? Did you eat? So that
Mm-hmm.
means DoorDash, Uber
Yeah.
Eats, Grubhub, somebody was bringing her that food. So I'm pretty certain that like those charges were not like like an unusual amount. Okay, like I just think about how like here at my house, like we DoorDash like none other. Okay, and if we didn't have that dash pass, you know, like I'm sure that amount would be like astronomically high. But you know, to say that he was just out here just living his best life, running through her money, I'm like, let's be real. She was down there with family. They said he's a vegan, and you could see like the video that he was in there getting her, you know, to try the ice cream, and she's like, "No, it's not real ice cream," and he was like, "It is real ice cream." Like, you know, like she just felt at peace. Um, and you can just see that light in her eye and even in his eyes. But when she was in New York, it was like a dark cloud that just surrounded her because she was alone. There was nobody there to really tell her no and keep her motivated. And I think that's the one thing that I love about Kevin is that his thing was we always did something, even if it was just taking her to the beach every day. Like they always got her out the house and kept her active and moving. And I think that, again, I'm not a medical professional, but I'm just saying, I feel like because they were keeping her mobile, keeping her engaged, that may have kind of slowed down what was there. But by her being home by herself, no one really to talk to, you know, I mean, again, she wasn't really like holding conversations. It was more like these people work for me, so they're going to do whatever I tell them to do type thing. Versus like, this is my family. My family going to tell me no, they're going to hurt my feelings. I don't care. I still love you. We're going to fall out. But, you know, no, you can't have this. Okay. This is Burger King. This is not Burger King. You cannot have it your way. Okay.
Mhm.
um, you can tell that, again, he missed that. So, I hope that the family is able to do something, because we miss Wendy, right? And you can really tell that even when she was around her family, that she was kind of coming slowly being herself, even though like there was still some moments where it was like, you can just see that she recognized everybody and that it was like being at home. And she was perfectly fine with saying, I don't want to talk about it. If it was something that she didn't want to talk about, I do like that the producers were not pressing her. And even like with the family, like if the family was like, I don't want to talk about it, it was like, okay, we respect the boundaries, because most people, they don't care about your boundaries. So I do think that the production team, they did a really good job. I don't know what it looked like in the raw, but in the final analysis of the thing, it turned out to be a really good documentary, because I did not know what to expect. And um, I leave here now, I guess, wanting to know, like, what now?
Yeah. Yeah. What now?
Yeah.
Where is she at now? Not necessarily where is she, but where is she at from a physical
Right.
perspective? How is she doing? Because it's not about business really where she's at literally residency, but how is she doing?
Mm-hmm.
And Wanda was saying that when they were speaking with her at the end, the way she was sounding, if she's sounding like that when it's time for the next hearing about the conservatorship, she'll be able to advocate for herself because she sounded like the old Wendy. And that was so encouraging. But again, being in a different place, getting proper treatment, proper care, proper nutrition, all of that adds, and exercise and, occupational therapy and PT, all that different stuff, it adds to the personal well-being and sort of like the rehabilitation, because again, she wasn't getting out the bed except whenever she was being, on screen. So her mobility, everything was declining, not just because of her feet condition, because she wasn't doing anything. So it would be very interesting to be able to get the update now. And I hope when we do hear an update, I hope that is a positive update about her. I want to talk about just a few things that are a takeaway for me as we wrap up. And one of the things that Wanda said, that Wendy has said, that family is very important. And I cannot underscore that enough. Family is very important. Her team was important, but her family was most important. And we need to remember that, family support during challenging times. And I think that we saw that in the documentary. And it just really reflected the significance of family bonds. Also, as I implied earlier, Wendy, in overcoming adversity, she's demonstrated resilience her whole life, up and down the scale, overcoming so many personal struggles, being a forerunner, a trailblazer, paving a way for herself and for others to come behind her, and even her personal struggles, some of her legal concerns. She's demonstrated resilience in the face of those things. Also, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the mental health. I think that it also the documentary underscores the significance of mental health awareness and the need to destigmatize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're still, particularly people of color, we don't talk much about it. We still are very standoffish, a lot of us, as it relates to mental health. And the sooner we can reach out and get assistance, hopefully the better our end results will be. So I think the mental health component, also the cognitive health. If we are a little gun shy about mental health, I think that we may be equally gun shy about cognitive health. I can remember in one of the jobs that I had years ago, I was working in a facility, and only one person in the facility, it was an adult facility, had Alzheimer's. And this young lady at the time, because I was much younger, she may have been, I'm going to say she was in her 60s, but she may have been in her 50s.
Mhm.
I'm going to say she was in her 50s. And she had developed Alzheimer's pretty young, because even if she was in her 60s, she had developed it young. She developed it young. And she was in a facility, and she would become combative, of course, at night, in the evening, because of Down's. So I'm not saying it correctly. If I hadn't thought about it, I would have been able to say it. But, as the sun goes down, things shift with individuals who sometimes have cognitive difficulties, and so they become more combative during that time period. But the thing is with that, being very observant and not waiting to the last minute to go and go to the doctor to see what's going on. Because some things, it may not even be that, but it may be something that needs to be taken care of, and we don't want to wait until the last minute. So just being more aware of the importance of our cognitive health. And then I think for us, as individuals who may have family members or friends who are suffering with that, suffering with cognitive health issues, being mindful, being supportive, learning all that we can learn so that we can support them through those challenges. Also, I think another thing that we cannot overlook is substance abuse. I think that the documentary really offered insight into substance abuse and how, as you said, whether it's alcohol, drugs, you didn't say food, sex, or whatever it is, how it can take over a person's life. And I think that the documentary gave us a view into that and just how important it is and how complex it is and how important it is to be aware of it and how it can impact the person's well-being and their health and those around them. And then I think the last thing that I'd like to mention is the importance of self-care, and to go back to Manswell said and what you said also, the importance of who you surround yourself with, your team. Because lots of times when we are burning the candle at both ends, we don't realize it because we're so focused. But you can't not continuously compromise your health in pursuit of a goal. At some point, you have to prioritize your health, your physical and your mental health. And I think that the documentary highlighted that. And the thing that kind of drove it home for me was when it may have been 2019, and she stepped away for a while, and she was in the SUV, and somebody was saying, whatever, whatever. She's like, well, I need to be away for a minute. And the people were like, well, we're praying for you, that you'll, was something like that, you'll come back, but we're praying for you. And I think she said, praying for me, because that was almost as if that was an affront to her, that meant that something was wrong. Well, that struck for me because, one, it is a figure of speech, but also it's an act of empathy. It shows that people are caring. But sometimes when we get so bombarded by life and we get so removed, we don't even understand why that's significant. But if we don't understand it, those who are around us, I would hope, would help us to understand why that's important. And as you said, Anjay, her family was in Miami. They weren't in New York with her all the time. So once she was divorced, she didn't have that person around her anymore. So again, I just thought there were lots of significant takeaways from the documentary. Um, and I know that you joined me in wishing Wendy the best. I thank everybody for joining us tonight, those who have given us their feedback and their thoughts about the documentary. I thank those who just joined us and those who joined us earlier. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Real Talk with TAS and OnJerya. And if you haven't already watched the Wendy Williams documentary, Where is Wendy Williams? It really is worth watching. There may be some triggering information, things that you'll see. So it's okay to watch it. It's four separate episodes. It's 4 hours, four separate episodes. Take your time watching them. You don't have to watch them all back to back because it is a lot of information to digest. And Wendy is an icon, and it is a lot to see at one time. Yes, she is loved by America. She's loved by so many people, and to see that it is it is a bit challenging, but it is still worth your while to watch the documentary. So thank you everybody for your insights and your perspectives. Again, if you have thoughts that come to you that you want to share with us after you've watched the documentary, please come back and drop them into the comment section. And of course, we will certainly respond to you. Any parting words, Anjaya, before I end our live?
Um, Not really. I mean, I guess what I will say is understanding that it's okay to grieve.
Yeah.
Um, a lot happened. A lot happened. Um, and I honestly feel like that had a good chunk to do with what she was going through. She was self-sabotaging, self-medicating. So just understanding that it's okay to grieve, and nobody can tell you how long to
Mhm.
grieve. So some people, when things happen to them, unfortunately, they never get over it. Some people, something happened to them today, and like 5 minutes later, it's like, whew, okay, well, got to pick up and keep it moving. So everybody grieves differently, and that would just be my takeaway. She did experience a lot. I mean, we can go on and on about this, with her and her miscarriages, the whole like divorce situation with the mistress and the baby, her ex-husband basically like taking her money. I mean, on and on and on and on. So it's like, being honest, like I've tipped my hat to her that she is where she at right now, and not worse, if that's even a word, than it could be, right? Because dealing with all of that, losing your show, COVID happened. How do I rebound? Then losing your mother, and then losing your family essentially, because now it's like you're a child, right? You have to get permission to leave and go see your family. It's a lot that happened to her in such a short amount of time. So, I feel like she wasn't able to grieve the way she wanted to grieve. And that was just what she was doing. She just self-medicating. So my takeaway would be is it's okay. It's okay. However long it takes, take it. That nobody, again, nobody can tell you how long it takes to get over something. And if you never get over it, it's okay. If you get, if you're able to get to a point where you can push through, right? So maybe I don't think about it today, but tomorrow comes and I shed a tear. It's okay. Shed that tear. We all do that. I promise you, it's moments I'm sitting right here. I done shed a tear while I was on here because I'm like, one, I got a cough, but but two, I'm like, it was triggering because my heart goes out to her, and I empathize, right? Like, just understanding like what she has gone through and is still going through. So again, it's okay to grieve. It's okay not to smile all the time. I promise you, it's okay. I do it a lot. I smile, and sometimes it hurt. You know, you hide the pain, but hey, you gotta don't stay in there. Is the takeaway. Whatever you're going through, don't stay in there. It's okay. Back
Well,
to
thank
you.
you, OnJerya. On that note, again, thank you everyone for joining us for this episode of Real Talk with TAS and OnJerya. Again, if you're not already following us, please follow us. You will see our names up in the upper left-hand corner. Dr. Teresa Smith, Miss Scorpio 85 here on IG. Follow us. You can find us every Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central Time, here live on Instagram, having a conversation about what you're having a conversation about in your house. And we love for you to join us here so that we can all have the conversation together. So until next time, make sure you take care of yourself first before you take care of someone else. Bye now.
Bye.